Khamzat Chimaev's short UFC career has been nothing short of extraordinary. In 2020, he exploded into the fight world stratosphere, winning 3 fights in 66 days and absorbing a mere 2 strikes in his first 4 bouts.
Khamzat Chimaev has outlanded his opponents 254 to 2 in 4 UFC appearances. It is unheard of what this man is doing.
He entered the UFC with the aura of an unbeatable but relatively unknown prospect, and did it at the best possible time, when nothing else but the UFC was going on in the world. With suffocatingly great wrestling skills, kickboxing, hellish power, and the right mindset, Khamzat had all the makings of a once-in-a-generation superstar.
I think when you're a fight fan, a guy like this is the type of guy that you love to watch and follow. This guy is one of the most special fighters I've ever seen, if not the most special guy that I've ever come across.
But we saw that star fade away little by little, with every layoff. Every month outside of the octagon made us believe the promise he wants to smash everybody a little less. Then, in both fights against genuine contenders, Chimaev gassed in the 3rd round, and while he won, his aura of invincibility has gradually faded. Now, it's time for him to face his first true test in Robert Whittaker, a true top-of-the-line middleweight contender who could prove to be a stylistic nightmare for boars.
Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev in Saudi Arabia. This is Robert Whittaker with plenty of time to prepare, a guy who is just as legit as they get, just beat Paulo Costa, you know. At least we got a chance to see what Khamzat looks like against a world-class, world championship caliber fighter.
But this is also the chance for Khamzat to erase all doubts and prove in action what he was telling us all along.
I come here for everybody, kill everybody!
After dominating the local scene and winning the Brave FC welterweight title, Khamzat was offered a short-notice fight on UFC Fight Island. Let me remind you how big of a deal Fight Island was. In the summer of 2020, everyone was going crazy over the pandemic, and the entire sporting world was dead in its tracks.
As the sports world rocked by the coronavirus, the NCAA canceling the March Madness tournament.
As the NBA suspends the season until further notice after a player tested positive.
Major League Soccer is the latest league to suspend play as the country tries to deal with COVID-19.
But UFC President Dana White dared to be great and started putting on events when no one else did. Fight Island was located in Abu Dhabi, and with nothing else going on and people locked in their homes, all eyes were on the UFC. This is when the star of the prominent Chechen exploded on the scene. His first fight against John Phillips quickly showcased Chimaev's prowess. He didn't lose a beat, taking down Phillips and punishing him mercilessly for the whole round.
He generates horrendous power!
The tough Phillips came out for more of the same in the second, until Khamzat, mercifully, darts choked him instead of continuing the beatdown.
Khamzat Chimaev by submission!
Just 10 days later, Khamzat was back in action, this time at welterweight, breaking the record for the fastest turnaround in the UFC. And the result was even more impressive than the first one. After a quick takedown and brutal 2-minute one-sided beatdown, opponent Race McKee was bloodied, bruised, and done.
Another win for Khamzat Chimaev. He is a wrecking ball. Wow.
Comparisons to a certain lightweight kingpin started. Were we witnessing the rise of the bigger, more aggressive, and more charismatic Khabib?
You're getting the comparisons to Khabib already, you know, comparing you, hey, Khabib, well, even your manager is calling you Khabib 3.0. Is that okay? Do you want those comparisons, or do you not want to be tied to Khabib?
It doesn't matter for me. I think it's pound for pound number 1, but soon I'm gonna be pound for pound number 1. I'm gonna be champion.
Chimaev had landed 192 strikes and absorbed only 2 in his first 2 fights. It is hard to think of a better way to build an aura of indestructibility.
If there's one fighter I'm gonna remember who I didn't know anything about coming into Fight Island, is that guy.
I mean, if you're coming out and you're saying that you think MMA is too easy, that you're ready to smash everybody at this point, that you are ready to become the pound for pound best fighter in the UFC, I think he's ready for a top 15 guy right now.
Fighting well is usually not enough to become a star. You also need to be marketable. Khamzat knew that well and started calling out everyone at both 170 and 185 pounds, including the champions.
I'm gonna smash everybody. How many fighters in the MMA division? I'm gonna smash all the whole division. Give me champion, 84 kilos, 77 kilos. I'm gonna smash both.
His accented English and super confident demeanor quickly built his unique character. His first real test at middleweight was Gerald Meerschaert, just a couple of months after his first 2 fights. Meerschaert already had over 40 professional fights, 23 submission wins, and a true middleweight frame at the time of the fight. Khamzat was downright disrespectful at the press conference, but his confidence soon proved well-founded.
How many times you lose your fights?
Oh, I've lost quite a few fights. 31 and 13.
You think you're black belt?
Yeah.
But
yeah, when you fight tough guys,
Jack Hermanson, he did not have a black belt. Why he choke you out?
Tough guys, man.
Who give you
You'll find out
belt? I have
Saturday.
blue belt. I'm gonna choke you out. I lost his last fight. I want to beat somebody better than him, but now I'm gonna smash him. Then we take next.
17 seconds into the fight, Khamzat landed a picture-perfect right hand that echoed in the empty Apex arena and crumpled Meerschaert. The indomitable wrestler was already a problem for welterweights, but now it turned out he could also knock out middleweights with one punch. With 3 flawless victories, Boers went from obscurity to superstardom in 66 days. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know more about Chimaev, and he was on everyone's tongue.
The guy's special. I've been in this game my whole life. I've never seen anything like him. He's a fascinating human being.
His call-outs of top 10 opponents are not uncommon for hot prospects with just a few fights, but Dana White has seen enough to decide Khamzat was truly special and scheduled him to face now champion, then top 3 welterweight Leon Edwards, who was riding an 8-fight win streak.
It has been announced via Dana White that Khamzat Chimaev has got an opponent. December the 19th is the date, and it's none other than our very own Leon Edwards.
Great fight. I mean, we find out very soon how real Khamzat Chimaev is.
Damn interesting resume versus a damn interesting resume in the same weight class. Would you rather be Leon, that you have not lost a fight in 4 years, or would you rather be Chimaev, who just burst onto the scene 3 up, 3 down, and never had to go a full 5 minutes?
But just like COVID created the unique circumstances for Khamzat to shine, now the pandemic halted his meteoric rise. The December 2020 fight with Leon came off the final card of the year when the Brit tested positive for COVID-19. The UFC tried booking the fight for January 2021, but this time the Chechen got COVID. A third attempt to book the fight in March was made, but Khamzat was having severe complications from the virus and was in no condition to fight. Known for his ridiculous training routines, Khamzat did not give his body enough time to rest and insisted on continuing to train while he was sick. This made his physical condition so bad that he thought he was going to die. In his despair, he posted a retirement announcement on Twitter in March.
He was really bad, you know. I started coughing, started feeling ill, and we had to cancel the training. When he called me, he thought he was going to die.
Luckily, Boers got over the horrendous symptoms, but with every month outside of the octagon, the momentum of Khamzat Chimaev gradually diminished. Khamzat made his long-awaited return to the octagon at UFC 267 in October 2021. The event was in Abu Dhabi, where the Muslim fan base always welcomes fighters of their faith as a family. It was the perfect arena for Boers to answer the lingering questions about his recovery and skills against higher-level opposition. This time, the opponent was 11th-ranked welterweight Li Jingliang. The 14 UFC fight veteran is a dangerous scrapper with vicious knockout power and had won 4 of his last fights prior to UFC 267. The fight was slated as the Leech versus the Wolf. Boers manhandled the Chinese fighter and picked him up like a child. carried him across the octagon to where Dana White was sitting and put the leech to sleep without absorbing a single strike.
It's over. That is it. 10-0. The hype is real.
Have you ever seen a phenom like Khamzat Chimaev?
In a little over 3 minutes, the Chimaev hype train was rolling full steam again, and everything was back to normal.
Khamzat Chimaev. This guy is going to cruise to a title shot.
Guy's different up here, but when you have that skill set to back up all the talk, you really are a problem. And I'm telling you, there is no one waiting and saying, hey, I want Khamzat right now. People aren't raising their hands saying they want to fight Chimaev.
Now, almost everyone believed Khamzat was the real deal, and potential big-name opponents were mentioned daily. The air of anticipation surrounding the newest UFC super prospect was comparable only to the one created by Conor McGregor in his best years. After many of the top welterweights were mentioned to fight Chimaev, the honor fell to the number 2 contender Gilbert Burns. Despite Durinho's high ranking, accolades, and recent challenge for the throne against Kamaru Usman, the general consensus was that Khamzat would smash him easily. Early in the round, the prediction seemed correct. Burns took down Burns and controlled him like he usually does, but the Brazilian managed to get up, and the fight between the wrestling machine and the BJJ master turned into a kickboxing affair. Late in the first, Chimaev sat Burns down with a stiff jab from southpaw, but the durable Brazilian survived the round. As the second round began, it seemed Gilbert was starting to settle into his groove and showed why he was the division's number 2. Khamzat got hit again and again, and halfway through the round, we witnessed him hurt for the first time in his career.
Chimaev backs up. He got hit again.
The remainder of the certain fight of the year contender was bloody and wildly entertaining. In the end, Chimaev got the nod from the judges, but the result would have been fair either way. While the fight answered the questions about Khamzat's durability and heart, the damage he took, and the narrow decision win cracked his armor of invincibility for good. Was the persona of being an untouchable god of war gone forever?
I wanted to see him get pushed. We hadn't seen him get pushed. He could have folded. I wanted to see. He got through the adversity. He got dropped a little bit. He got waddled a little bit. All of a sudden, he wasn't the bully anymore. He wasn't the hammer. He was starting to become the nail.
In a normal timeline with a win over the number 2 guy in the division, Khamzat should have fought the welterweight champion. Instead, the UFC decided Khamzat should face Nate Diaz, the same fan favorite Nate Diaz, who, despite an enormous fan base and experience, was in the twilight of his career. Not even in the top 15, and with a losing record in the UFC. Then why on earth would the UFC match the hottest welterweight prospect up against a washed-up career lightweight? The answer is simple. Nate Diaz was thrown to the wolves quite literally. He has been criticizing the UFC brass harshly and wanted out of the promotion, but he had one more fight on his contract, and Dana would not let him off the leash the easy way.
This is a sacrifice. Like, Nate Diaz coming in here against the Wolf, they're looking to get one more win under his belt. They're looking to get one more name on his record before he moves on to fight a title challenger.
In Nate's defense, he has as big a name as anyone in the UFC. He has been set up to fail against a seemingly unstoppable force before and defied all odds. We all remember a certain Irishman. At least we knew the two personalities would not let us be bored in the pre- and post-fight banter. But Chimaev's beef with Nate was not enough. Behind the scenes, another rivalry was brewing, and he and Kevin Holland exchanged words and physicalities.
I feel like, he only does this extra wannabe street shit when the media's around. Other than that, he doesn't do it. So, when you guys aren't around, he wants to do fist bumps and he wants to be your best friend. When you guys are around, then all of a sudden he's like, I'm gonna rip your fucking head off. He ain't ripping shit off, dog. Let's be real. You want a paycheck just like the rest of these guys around here.
A few short hours later, Diaz and Khamzat's teams got into what we can safely call a brawl. The horrendous mismatch was already off to a bad start. But the MMA gods were still not done intervening. On weigh-in day, the undefeated star tipped the scales 8.5 pounds above the welterweight limit.
178.5.
Nate almost immediately turned down the fight, and the UFC had to make a quick decision. Tony Ferguson was bumped up to fight Nate Diaz in the main event, while Khamzat faced off against his fresh new rival, Kevin Holland, at catchweight. Suddenly, there was order in the universe again.
Somehow, the UFC chose the path of most resistance, putting this card together, and yet ended up with the card that it should have been all along.
The first bell rang, and Khamzat unleashed his inner wolf immediately. He pounced on Holland and got his prey to the ground despite the Californian's best effort. The predator quickly exhausted his victim, and in a little more than 2 minutes later, Holland was desperately tapping to a Darce choke.
Chimaev disposes of Kevin Holland.
Despite his unquestionably dominating performance, Khamzat's blatant weigh-in fiasco and unapologetic behavior afterward did not sit well with the fans.
Then he's flipping off the crowd, then he's talking shit, and he's talking about killing people, left, right, and center. Well, out there, Saturday night, there was 95% of the crowd wanted Chimaev to get his head popped off because people aren't liking him. He's a legit bad guy. He's straight out of a Bond movie. The way he looks, the way he talks.
How can you put a guy, especially at 170, in a title fight, not having a guarantee that he can make the weight? And how can you put him in a title fight at 185 and reward him after he just caused a havoc that almost canceled really an entire event Nick Diaz wouldn't have fought? So I think the UFC needs to give him another chance. Keep in mind, this is his first weight miss.
It seemed the days of Chimaev fighting every weekend were gone, and we had to wait another year for Boris to return. This time, he was returning to fight at his much more natural middleweight division. His chosen opponent was legitimate middleweight contender and physical freak Paulo Costa. As expected from the loud-mouthed, unbeaten prospect and the self-proclaimed Mean King Costa, the two waged a war of words long before their planned octagon meeting. But as fate would have it, the war would remain only on words. Costa underwent elbow surgery and had to pull out of the fight, which left Chimaev without an opponent 10 days before UFC 294. Enter Kamaru Usman. What seemed a compelling matchup a year ago was now considered a mismatch. Kamaru was coming off 2 losses and had to face Chimaev on 10 days' notice in a division he had never fought in. Everyone expected one-way action from Chimaev and another easy win. But this is not what happened. Despite Usman's infamous wrestling prowess, the fight had a rocky start for him, and Khamzat spent much of it controlling the former welterweight kingpin from his back. But it would seem the effort took more from Chimaev than from Usman because the tempo of the second was considerably slower, and the pair mainly stalked each other on the feet. The trusty takedowns finally failed Boris in the third, and he was forced to stay on his feet and box with Usman while visibly slowing down. He finally took Kamaru down, which was enough to seal the round in his favor.
Khamzat Chimaev!
Chimaev successfully ran his unbeaten record to 13-0, but finally lost his world-beater reputation. Burns was the first to show the chinks in his armor, and Usman shattered it completely. Yes, Chimaev is a freak of nature and has all the potential to be a world champion, but is the magic gone? The first UFC show in Saudi Arabia will also be the first time Khamzat faces a true middleweight. Former champion Robert Whittaker may prove to be a stylistic nightmare for Chimaev. The Aussie's ability to dictate range and distance, his durability, and most importantly, his anti-wrestling skills, may prove too big of a bite for Boris.
Khamzat being undefeated, it's such a ripe opportunity to sort of make a statement. Ideally, what do you want to show and prove in this one?
Yeah, I want to show my medal. I want to get out there, and I want to show how good I am. I want to show the world that I'm going to get that belt back. Everybody's undefeated until they're not.
The Chechen hasn't failed to dominate a first round, but if his opponent survives the opening 5 minutes, his gas tank seems to need refueling. and the prospects of having to go 5 rounds against Whittaker, who has gone the distance with unwaning energy multiple times, do not look to be in favor of the Chechen.
One of the criticisms on him is just, well, how does he do later in the fight? What are you expecting there?
I hope he doesn't handle it well.
Yeah.
But I expect him to be fit and ready.
Will the Wolf finally become a big game hunter and establish himself as a threat to the throne? Or will the Reaper be the one who finally sides down the undefeated prospect and expose him?